Chapter 1: A New Friend. Edward Cullen was a vampire living in the 19th century, and he had lived a solitary life for many years. He roamed the world, always searching for something that would give his existence meaning. One day, while wandering through the streets of London, he met a young woman named Elizabeth. She was different from anyone he had ever met before, and he was immediately drawn to her. Elizabeth was a vampire like Edward, and she told him about a secret society of vampires that operated in the shadows. She told him that they were dedicated to protecting the vampire race, and that they were always searching for new members to join their cause. Edward was intrigued by Elizabeth's words, and he began to consider joining this secret society. He had lived a lonely life for so long, and the idea of being part of something greater than himself was appealing. Over the next few weeks, Edward and Elizabeth grew closer. They talked about their lives, their fears, and their hopes for the future. Edward found that he was opening up to Elizabeth in ways that he never had before, and he felt that he had finally found a friend who understood him. One night, Elizabeth took Edward to meet the leaders of the secret society of vampires. They were impressed by Edward's abilities and his determination, and they offered him a place in their group. Edward was torn. He had never been part of anything like this before, and he wasn't sure if he was ready for it. But Elizabeth was there beside him, and she convinced him that this was the right thing to do. In the end, Edward made the decision to join the secret society of vampires. He was excited to be part of something greater than himself, and he was eager to start making a difference in the world. And so, Edward began his journey with the secret society of vampires, determined to protect his kind and make a difference in the world. He knew that his life was about to change in ways he never could have imagined, but he was ready for whatever lay ahead. Chapter 2: Training and Preparation. Edward quickly adapted to life in the secret society of vampires. He was given extensive training in the arts of combat and stealth, and he soon became one of the most skilled members of the group. He also learned about the history of the vampire race, and the challenges that they faced. He learned about the dangers posed by humans who hunted vampires, and the need for secrecy and caution. Despite the rigorous training and the serious nature of his work, Edward found that he was enjoying his life in the society. He had finally found a sense of purpose, and he was surrounded by like-minded individuals who shared his passion for making a difference. One day, Edward was approached by the leader of the society, a wise and experienced vampire named James. James told Edward that he had been chosen for a special mission, one that would test his skills and his bravery. Edward was nervous, but he was also eager to prove himself. He agreed to the mission, and he spent the next few days preparing for it. He honed his abilities, studied his target, and crafted a plan that would ensure his success. Finally, the day of the mission arrived. Edward set out into the night, determined to complete his task and prove his worth to the society. As he carried out his mission, Edward realized just how much he had grown since joining the society. He was confident, skilled, and fearless, and he knew that he was making a difference in the world. When he returned to the society, he was greeted as a hero. He had completed his mission with grace and skill, and he had earned the respect of his fellow vampires. Edward was proud of what he had accomplished, and he knew that he had found his true calling. He was dedicated to the society, and he was ready to continue making a difference in the world, one mission at a time. Chapter 3: The Betrayal. Edward continued to serve the society with distinction, taking on missions and completing them with skill and courage. He was respected by his fellow vampires, and he was seen as a valuable asset to the group. However, one night, he received a strange message from a mysterious figure. The message contained information about a plot against the society, and it warned Edward to be careful. Edward immediately took the message to James, the leader of the society. James was shocked by the news, and he ordered an investigation into the matter. As it turned out, the information in the message was accurate. There was indeed a plot against the society, and it was being led by one of their own, a vampire named Marcus. Marcus was jealous of Edward's success and popularity, and he had been secretly plotting against the society for months. He had made deals with human hunters and other dangerous groups, and he was determined to bring the society down. Edward was horrified by the news, and he was determined to stop Marcus and save the society. He went on a mission to gather evidence of Marcus's treachery, and he finally succeeded in exposing him. In the ensuing battle, Edward and Marcus faced off against each other, fighting with all their might. Edward was the better fighter, but Marcus was fueled by hatred and desperation, and he wouldn't go down easily. Just when it seemed like the battle was lost, James and the other members of the society arrived to lend their support. Together, they were able to defeat Marcus and his followers, saving the society and ensuring its future. But the victory was bittersweet. Edward had lost many friends in the battle, and he was left with a deep sense of sadness and loss. Despite his success, he couldn't shake the feeling that the society was no longer the place he had once loved. In the end, Edward made a difficult decision. He left the society, seeking a new path and a new sense of purpose. He was no longer a defender of the vampire race, but he was still a warrior, and he would continue to fight for what was right, no matter where his journey took him. Chapter 4: A New Path. Edward wandered the earth for many years, searching for a new purpose in life. He visited many different countries and saw many things that he had never seen before, but he always felt like something was missing. One day, he found himself in a small village in Italy. There, he met a young woman named Isabella, who was unlike anyone he had ever met before. She was kind and compassionate, and she had a way of looking at the world that was different from anyone else's. Edward was drawn to Isabella, and he soon found himself falling in love with her. He didn't want to frighten her with the truth about his nature, so he kept his identity as a vampire hidden from her. But one day, Isabella discovered Edward's true nature. She was frightened at first, but she soon realized that Edward was unlike any other vampire she had ever heard of. He was kind and gentle, and he had a deep sense of morality that she found fascinating. Despite her fears, Isabella decided to give Edward a chance. She saw something in him that was worth loving, and she was willing to take a risk. Edward was overjoyed by Isabella's acceptance, and he quickly made her a part of his life. They traveled the world together, visiting new and exciting places, and learning about each other and themselves. As they journeyed together, Edward and Isabella discovered that they shared a deep connection that transcended their different species. They were two souls who were meant to be together, and they were finally able to find the love and happiness that they had both been searching for. In the end, Edward and Isabella settled down in a small village in Italy, where they lived out the rest of their lives together. They were remembered as an odd but loving couple, and their story inspired others to look beyond the boundaries of species and find love where they least expected it. Chapter 5: Goodbye, My Love. Edward and Isabella lived a long and happy life together, but as the years went by, Isabella grew weaker and weaker. Edward knew that her time was running out, and he was filled with a sense of sadness and loss. One day, Isabella passed away peacefully in her sleep. Edward was devastated by her loss, and he felt like a part of him had died with her. He stayed by her side for many days, grieving and remembering the joy and happiness they had shared. As he sat there, he realized that Isabella was more than just his love and his partner, she was his soulmate, and he would carry her with him always. Eventually, Edward had to let her go. He buried her in a beautiful cemetery in the village where they had lived, and he promised to visit her every day and keep her memory alive. Over the years, Edward continued to live his life, but he never forgot Isabella. He told her story to anyone who would listen, and he always remembered her as the love of his life. In the end, Edward was content. He had found love and happiness in a world that was often cruel and heartless, and he knew that he would carry his memories of Isabella with him forever. And though she was gone, he was thankful for the time they had spent together, and he knew that their love would endure forever. If you liked this video, please give it a like and share. Subscribe the channel for more amazing stories.